The movie begins with the introduction of our protagonist, Mason Pettits. He describes how, as a child, he tried to establish a sense of purpose and meaning in life. He enrolled in law school while still in college, but it quickly became repetitive, and he quit out. After that, he joined the United States Army, where he discovered his purpose and felt fully alive. During this time, he married a woman named Jenny and had a daughter. Mason and his men are forced to travel to Paldonia to overthrow the dictator president, Juan Venegas. Unfortunately, their mission takes a terrible turn when a missile strikes their chopper. As a result, most of Mason's teammates perish, and while he survives, he sustains lifelong back injuries. Following this occurrence, Mason is discharged from the army and must return to civilian life. With no other option, he finishes law school and begins working as a lawyer. Once again, he loses his sense of purpose, which has an impact on his personal life and marriage. In the following scenario, Mason is dissatisfied in his office when his former Army General Sebastian comes. They're glad to see one another after a lengthy absence, and Sebastian claims to have something essential to talk. After that, he brings Mason to his office, where he discloses that he has founded his own private security firm, CDI, and wants Mason to join him. He explains that a female American reporter is traveling to Paldonia to interview President Venegas, and Mason must accompany her for protection. When Mason learns this, he quickly declines the offer because Venegas is responsible for the death of his friends and the termination of his military career. After all of this, he doesn't understand why Sebastian would work for such a person. Sebastian gives him $20,000 and pretends to know how unhappy Mason is with his lawyer profession. Mason claims that he isn't as powerful as he once was and that his back is permanently damaged. Still, Sebastian insists, and Mason grudgingly agrees to take the job. Mason then researches the female reporter, Claire Wellington. She used to be a well-known journalist, but a professional error in the past forced her out of the spotlight. Since then, she has struggled to find serious work, and now she gets the opportunity to interview a high-profile politician. Mason and Jenny argue that evening after discovering that their daughter had hit someone at school on her father's instruction. Jenny is heartbroken and believes she can no longer be with Mason because he is dissatisfied with them. She says she'll move in with her parents, but Mason interrupts her and says he's leaving instead. He then informs her that he is going to work as a security guard, infuriating her even more. She finally lets him depart, hoping it will help him move on from his problems and save their failing marriage. The next day, Mason picks up Claire and they fly to Paldonia together. Mason notices this when she watches some troll videos of Claire. She inquires if he is making fun of her, but he assures her that this is not the case. She then declares that, regardless of what has transpired in the past, she vows to restore her reputation now. She reveals that Venegas has not granted any media interviews in the past 10 years. However, he has now personally invited her to an interview, which is significant for her professional development. Soon later, they arrive in Paldonia and are hailed by President Venegas. He tells Claire that she is much more stunning in person and kisses her hand. They then hop into a car and drive to the capital. Claire presents Mason to Venegas, who says he's already done his investigation and is aware that Mason is a former Army officer. Following this, Claire and Venegas continue to talk and drink, utterly disregarding Mason. A while later, they are unexpectedly attacked by mercenaries. So Mason takes control of the vehicle and sends Venegas and Claire to the back seat. He retaliates by shooting the attackers, causing their automobile to crash. Mason limps out of the car after killing everyone, surprising Venegas and Claire with his combat abilities. Venegas continues to laud him, but Mason becomes upset and announces that he and Claire are leaving right away. Claire states that she must conduct the interview first because this is a significant opportunity for her. Mason, however, believes that her life is more important than her profession and advises that they leave. Following that, the three of them enter the jungle, and Mason contacts Sebastian to tell him what occurred. Sebastian is startled when he reveals that he murdered all of the attackers on his own. Mason tells that they're lost in the wilderness and need to get out. So Sebastian promises him that they will dispatch a helicopter with his guys to pick them up soon. Venegas then begs for the phone and phones his nephew, George. George is scared to discover that his uncle is still alive, considering he was the one who dispatched the mercenaries. Venegas then informs his nephew that they were attacked, and he is now stranded in the woods. After hanging up, Venegas informs Claire and Mason that he believes his nephew George is behind all of this. However, he claims that George is only a pawn acting on someone else's directions. Later, Venegas proposes they proceed to the capital. Mason, on the other hand, claims that a chopper is on its way to pick them up and that they would be departing shortly. He then departs with Claire, leaving Venegas behind. On the way, Claire requests that Mason allow her to conduct the interview first, but he refuses. Shortly after, they notice a chopper approaching and feel pleased that they may finally return home. But, to their astonishment, a few armed mercenaries emerge from the helicopter and shoot at them. Mason and Claire flee into the forest, with the mercenaries pursuing them. Mason defeats most of the invaders and even shoots down the chopper. However, one of the mercenaries catches up with him and violently beats him. He almost kills Mason, but suddenly, Venegas appears and shoots the assailant. After a while, George and his crew arrive, and he is shocked to see the helicopter's condition. Just thereafter, the mercenary commander, Cohorst, enters and chastises George for failing to execute his uncle. George says that his mercenaries also failed to complete their mission, but Cohorst becomes enraged and threatens to murder him if he makes the same mistake again. Meanwhile, Venegas takes Mason and Claire to his hometown, where everyone admires him. After some time, Claire sits down with Venegas for an interview, while Mason records everything. Claire mentioned the attack earlier and wonders why these mercenaries are chasing him. According to Venegas, Paldonia is rich in the rare mineral lanthanide, which is required for the production of phones, laptops, and other modern technology. Large Western businesses want to mine it in Paldonia, but this will affect the land and local ecosystem. If foreign companies harvest and sell the minerals, they will incur significant financial losses. So Venegas is stopping all foreign firms from establishing themselves in Paldonia, making him an adversary of powerful individuals. As a result, he is under attack from mercenaries and militants hired by external powers. That night, Claire, Mason, and Venegas had a nice time with the locals. Later, Claire approaches Mason and attempts to seduce him. He gently refuses, explaining that he loves his wife and cannot do this to her. The next day, as they prepare to leave, Mason phones Sebastian and asks why he chose him for the assignment. He has no idea why the mercenaries from the chopper are chasing them. So Sebastian admits that he actually sent Mason to assassinate Venegas in retaliation for killing their colleagues. He admits that he's gotten orders from powerful people to get rid of Venegas. Those mercenaries were not intended to attack them, but they only wanted Venegas. Mason then phones home, and his daughter answers the phone. She tells him she misses him, and her mother is distraught. Mason then speaks with Jenny, who is relieved to hear his voice. She apologizes for what occurred before and asks him to return home safely. Mason then approaches Venegas and Claire, suggesting they leave immediately. However, before they can go, Korst appears with his troops and begins terrorizing the community. So Mason jumps on a horse with Venegas and rides away. Claire also gets on a horse and starts rushing, but she slips and is grabbed by Korst. Mason is concerned about this, but Venegas tells him that they would not hurt her as long as he is alive. Later, Mason and Venegas arrive at a town and decide to stay the night. Venegas informs Mason that he was not the one who shot down the chopper that murdered his friends during the American invasion. He had lost hope and was going to flee via underground tunnels. Aldonia's troops was unable to track and shoot down American helicopters, so he feels it was friendly fire. Mason then tells him that he was sent here to kill him, but Venegas insists he already knows this. The next day, Korst and his forces arrive in town as well. So Mason devises a strategy to save Claire by offering Venegas in exchange. Venegas comes in front of Korst, presumably willing to surrender. However, the situation changes when thousands of residents rush into the streets to protect him. Because the private army has only been paid to murder Venegas, they cannot open fire on innocent citizens, as this would land them in serious difficulty. During the chaos, Venegas, Mason, and Claire head to an underground tunnel and sneak into the palace. In the president's office, they find George sitting alone, who is scared to see his uncle. Claire begins live streaming from her phone, and Venegas tells his nephew not to be afraid of him and that they will protect the nation together. Hearing this, George realizes his mistake, so he tearfully hugs and apologizes to his uncle. Moments later, one of the generals enters, and he immediately shoots Venegas. George gets angry and shoots the general, who fires back repeatedly. Within a few seconds, both George and the general die in a gunfire. However, Venegas survives. As it turns out, he was wearing a bulletproof suit. Venegas is devastated by his nephew's death, but he is soon encircled by many soldiers. They are all pointing guns at him, but he assures them that he is their president, not their enemy. He tells them this is their nation, and they are not terrorists but soldiers fighting to protect it. Suddenly, Cohorst arrives with his men, but the soldiers turn towards him and start attacking the mercenaries to protect their president. Meanwhile, Sebastian also arrives to help in Paldonia with his troops to help Mason. A shootout ensues, and Claire continues to live stream everything on her phone. Soon after, Cohorst approaches Mason and starts beating him. He claims that he was the one who shot down his helicopter and killed his teammates. This enrages Mason, and the two begin brutally attacking each other. After an intense struggle, Cohorst overpowers Mason and is about to kill him. Just then, Claire attacks Cohorst's head, which brutally injures him. Since the other mercenaries are still after them, Mason takes a huge gun and shoots them all, while Claire records it on her phone. After this incident, Claire's courageous footage is featured in news reports all over the world. In a press conference, President Venegas steps down from his dictatorship and announces a public election for the following year. In the final scene, Mason returns to the U.S. and reunites with his family. He apologizes to Jenny and says that he wants to fix their marriage. Later, Mason checks his account balance and discovers that Venegas sent him $5 million as a reward for helping him. With this, Mason finds a new purpose in life, which is to spend more time with his family. Thank you for watching. If you are new, don't forget to subscribe for more recaps. Until next time, have a nice day.